thing. This is probably gonna be our intro, but yeah, thank fuck I
Start
finally,
drinking.
thank God I finally figured out how to do fucking OBS. Oh my God, it has been. I look back on when we first started doing this back in like what's almost been a year now in 2 months, like when we started this project.
Mhm.
I oh I was so hesitant about using OBS because I had no idea how to do any of this. And then I look back on a year later and I'm listening back on the audio levels, or I'm listening back on some of the older podcasts, especially when I was doing the shorthand, or when I was first starting shorthand, and I'm like, oh my God, no.
Well, I mean, you were learning.
I was learning, but like when we learn, we know better, and when we know better, we look back at our old stuff and cringe. I don't buy it. Just go to fucking therapy.
If I develop Sims, delete the channel.
Fuck capitalism. We need to start a revolution.
And you know what? I'm gonna say it.
I can't replace a fire alarm on my own. Technically, 25 is technically you.
Sing your morning routine.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dean. Welcome back to the InkGuild podcast, and welcome to the final episode of season 3. Tonight, I'm joined by Gabe and Gabe alone.
Hello.
Yeah. So, it's unfortunate that it's only just Gabe because I was hoping that we would have a bigger audience, but unfortunately, because we're all still in university, many of us have had plenty of things to, or me, like plenty of us have had, oh my God, what the hell am I trying to say? We've all had like some pretty rough days the last couple weeks, and maybe some have had it harder than others, but we did want to commit to finishing off the season and a very consistent schedule. And looking back at the season, this has been I think the most consistent season since we've started. Like, I know when this goes up, I would have taken a week off a couple weeks ago for new uploads because I had a midterm to deal with at the time. But yeah, aside from that, we have been consistently recording for the last few weeks. And not only that, but we've introduced a couple new people into the guild. I think in particular Brooke has been an amazing addition to our podcast, or to the guild, I guess. As well, it's always been hectic, it's always been chaotic. And aside from that, we always like to provide insight into our interest in that, or our mutual interest in that's creative writing. So for people who have been sticking around since then, thank you so much. And for any new listeners either through TikTok or YouTube or whatever, hi, welcome. Normally I'm a little bit better at normally I'm a little bit better at introducing these things, but anyway, before we get to our main topic, because I am feeling a little bit nostalgic for the end of this project, let's go over some of our thing. Gabe, how about you and I go over like a couple of our favorite episodes that we did this season? So as his host, I was part of all of them, but I think if I remember correctly, Gabe, you were part of the writing growth episode. So the first episode, you were part of the MCU episode. You were also part of the giving criticism episode, the video game episode that we did with the Soy Boys again. And then you're helping me close out the season, and I'm kind of misremembering, but yeah, let's talk quickly about let's quickly talk about season 3. How'd you find it?
Well, I know that I loved doing another episode with the Soy Boys. Those guys are always great guests. I like talking about video games. That's just like it's a very sweet spot. Love doing those episodes. Would very much like to do more next season. I like the MCU episode a lot. I feel like I got to air out a lot of my feelings towards that franchise, and like also sort of have a reality check that I do actually like a lot of the movies, despite my like pretentious hipster bullshittery about how I hate the MCU, but I actually do like a good handful of those movies. And I liked least favorite characters. That's an episode I've been like rallying for us to do for a while. So I was very amped to see that one.
Yeah, I think that might be maybe a personal favorite out of the season for me because I think like you had been said, it's been one that you've been like super excited for, and that makes me really happy. That's like, oh, we get to do episodes that you guys want to do too, and it's not just my head coming up with things. I think Alex had pitched the queer baiting episode and the songwriting episode, so credit is where credit's due. But yeah, the least favorite characters episode is probably my personal favorite because that was a fun edit. I think like adding a swear counter was probably like a really fun addition to the episode because we swore so much in that one episode. I didn't really realize it, but oh my god, we swore I think close to 180 total.
Yeah, that tends to happen when hate is being spewed out.
Yeah, I'm impressed. But I think aside from the least favorite characters episode, you're right. I did also enjoy having the Soy Boys back. It was always great talking to them about video game stories. And if there's anything to go by, I hope that we get to participate in something or in stuff they want to work on eventually.
Oh yeah, I'd love to be a guest on their show if they do it.
Yeah. Morgan, if you're listening to this is a reminder to produce your podcast. But aside from that, yeah, I think the MCU episode was like probably the indicator for me at least that like, okay, these episodes are probably going to be a lot more there's going to be a lot more to talk about with this season because that one ended up being like 3 hours long total.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, it's thing. I'm not complaining because of like editing wise, because pretty much it's just I have to listen to the whole thing and like no timestamps and whatever. But like, oh my god, 3 hours. But
yeah.
Aside from that, what else did we do? What else did we talk about in season 3? We cinematic franchise and romance stories. I think romance stories in particular, it was great having Maddie back. Cinematic franchises, it was good rant between you, Brooke, and I, Gabe, and I'm scrolling through the wrong chat. So I'm currently scrolling through Discord to find our schedule or like the lineup because I don't remember it off by memory.
It's in the pinned messages.
I'm so dumb. Can everyone tell that I just come from like a very long day?
Through 3 months of messages to find.
I was scrolling through the holy chat.
So wait, you were scrolling through the wrong channel to find something that was in the pinned messages of another channel. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Amazing. I'm an amazing host, aren't I?
It is a wonder you haven't just burned the whole thing down.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, so from what? So for our first episode was evolution of our writing styles, MCU, queer baiting, romance stories, the Sarah J. Maas episode. I can't believe we forgot about that. Yeah, Sarah J. Maas episode was like a really healthy, I guess a really fun night of just like ranting about an author that we like to meme on. And
it's been a long time coming too.
It has been. It's weird because as soon as we did that episode, we like up until tonight we didn't talk about Sarah J. Maas on the channel.
No, you had to get it off your chest.
Yeah. So aside from the Sarah J. Maas episode, there was giving, receiving criticism, the video game stories with the Soy Boys, least favorite characters, the songwriting episode that we did with Marie-Soleil and Tyler, her boyfriend, cinematic franchises, and then our season closers, which is sharing writing scenes, which was uploaded a couple days ago. And tonight we're talking dialogue. So similar to the action scenes episode, similar to the writing action scenes, we're going to be Gabe and I are going to be sharing our dialogue. I think in particular, it'll just be when we mean dialogue, we'll pretty much consider more than just the individual things people say. Like, there's so much going on when there is a dialogue sequence. I think in particular, there's body language, there's reading each other, there's reading your friend or your foe or something. Maybe some action thrown in there, but basically dialogue is a very important aspect to your story. And similar to how we did it with the writing similar to how we did it with Wednesday's episode, Gabe will be speaking first. He'll be sharing. Are you going to be sharing from Lemon Heart still?
Yeah, I'm sharing exclusively from Lemon Heart.
Okay, so yeah, Gabe will share from Lemon Heart. He's going to be filling in some context first, and then I will be sharing. I'll be sharing from Xeno. I'll give some context before we start, and then in between we'll make some comments here and there. But yeah, I will quickly load up Gabe's document for myself, just so I can follow along. But I'll let him go ahead.
Okay, so a bit of preamble before I get started. For those of you listening who haven't heard me talk about this book before, essentially the premise for Lemon Heart is there is a teenage boy named Dune who lives in a post-apocalyptic frozen wasteland in a cannibalistic village who survives his day by day by eating acorns and birds and watching a fuck ton of porn. And he lives a peaceful life like this until one day a military group comes, ransacks the village, kills everyone for being cannibals, and takes his porn, spurring him on a revenge quest to get his porn back.
I still I will forever love hearing the plot to Lemon Heart. It's so good.
Thank you. So this first segment, which I've titled "Ludens Explains Himself," this comes in at around. It's a little spoilery, but it's not a major spoiler. I'm okay talking about this. It comes in at around a third through the book, and this is when. So in the context, Ludens was the leader of the military team who attacked Dune's village. Several chapters later, during an encounter with another hostile faction, Dune's and Ludens' paths crossed again. The two were forced to work together under the circumstances, but now the fighting has stopped, and Dune has questions for the man that took everything from him. He approaches Ludens, gun in hand, as Ludens is quietly fishing over a lake with bright pink water. So this, I couldn't put the whole dialogue section in, so this because of the word count, but this jumps in about a third of the way through. They've already exchanged vaguely hostile pleasantries at each other, and now Dune is at the point where he's just asking him stuff. Back then, your friend, Jaina, she knew things about fear on me, about our village. How does she know? Dune asked. Ludens smiled softly, his gaze unmoved from the quiet waters. Dune stepped closer. Jaina has a gift. That's the best way I can put it. She understands people deeply on a level beyond observation. What, like she read our minds? Not exactly. It's more like the way you know how wood will feel against your fingers before you touch it, or the way you know a flower will smell nice just from looking at it. She can look at a person and understand the truth of them. There's nothing more to it than that. She simply knows, and she's never wrong. How? How does she do that? Dune asked. Ludens paused and watched the line on his reel sit still in the water. A fish curiously swam around the bait for a moment. I don't quite know. She's never told me. I never really questioned it, though. I mean, do you question how you learned to breathe? Chew? Ludens contemplated. Dune took a deep breath and stepped closer. Fine, forget it. Be vague. Whatever. What about my village? Why'd you kill everyone? I thought you said you weren't out for revenge. I'm not. I didn't like them much, but they didn't deserve to die. You saw how it was there. Nothing grows. Barely anything lives. They were just trying to survive. Dune asked. For the first time since they started speaking, Ludens' attention was pulled away from the lake, and he looked back at Dune. Let me answer that question with another question. When did the cannibalism start? Ludens asked. Dune gasped. What? When did it start? Did it start months before my arrival? Did it start years before? When you were a child? A baby? Before that even? Ludens elaborated. He turned his attention back to the waters, and Dune lowered his gun. Another fish curiously swam towards the bait. It's not that I think your people were evil for what they did. People do what they have to. It can't be helped. But you must have seen it with your own eyes. A tribe might commit cannibalism only to survive, and they'll make rules about it, stick to them. Then the generation that started it and had principles about it, they die out and leave with their children a culture where cannibalism is not considered wrong. Given time, they will slaughter outsiders for their flesh, and when they can't do that on their own, they aren't built to last, and they will only cause suffering in their brief existence. That's why I wiped your village out. You're so sure. What about me? You didn't kill me. You're not a cannibal, Dune. No, but I was raised by them, and I chose not to take part. I made that choice. What does your belief about people's nature say about that? It says they would have killed you for defiance after long. I'd wager the only reason they hadn't eaten you yet is you're nothing but skin and bones. I never asked you why you were the only person under 18 in your village, but I think you know the reason perfectly well. You know I'm right. Ludens reeled in the fish and held it against the wood of the docks. He removed a small knife from his pocket and held it over the fish. What does et pereat mundus mean? Dune asked, raising the gun back up. Ludens stopped. The fish squirmed in between his fingers. The knife trembled in his hand. It's a Latin phrase, meaning, and the world perish. What does it mean to you? Dune clarified. Ludens sighed and relaxed his arm. He pushed the fish off the docks and back into the water, watching as it swam away. He stood up and faced Dune. Dune watched, quietly but cautiously, as Ludens placed the blade of the knife against his palm. It means I have a reason to keep living in this world. That's it.
Ooh. Finger snaps. Good reading.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about it. So this is taking place. So in the document you provided, it says that it's taking place within chapter 1.
This section is in around chapter 11. This is after there's been some time apart. They've met up again after a violent encounter forced them to work together, and now
Okay, gotcha. All right. I think some of my initial impressions is you really do a good job of how do I put this? I think establishing character. I think especially between Ludens and Dune, because Dune, I would imagine. I don't want to say. Or what am I trying to say? I think with Ludens, Ludens has a lot of character to him. He carries himself, pretty well and very, he has an agenda. I think if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
He has reason to live, and with Dune, because he is searching for his porn and he is looking for answers. That's reflective of him asking a bunch of questions. I like that. I really like that. That's a good touch, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything you want to talk about with this excerpt that you provided?
Yeah, it does cut off a little abruptly, because right after it cuts off, there's some more spoilery discussions that I don't want to get into on the podcast. And but yeah, basically I want the relationship between Dune and Ludens is it's probably one of my favorite things to write in this book. They have they have a weird sort of relationship throughout the story, with Ludens being this sort of not antagonist, but he should be an antagonist, but he's just kind of not. And Dune is this sort of he's framed as the protagonist, but the way that he is as a person, he's just kind of not. So there's these two people who are just in a position that they really shouldn't be, and they're sort of in this world that's just pressing them into this situation. So I like writing their dynamic, and I thought this would be a good example to sort of demonstrate like their characters when they interact with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what's with the can you explain the whole point of like them fishing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Ludens is fishing in the scene. It's
Okay.
basically just so after the fighting has stopped, like the groups have sort of made camp, and so the two groups have sort of like made camp. Ludens is basically fishing was just a placeholder. I wanted the fishing because I wanted the fish thing to happen, but like it's basically just I want Ludens to be just doing something where he's like very preoccupied with something and not really like attentive to Dune holding a gun on him.
Right.
And he's just like preoccupied with his own thing.
That's very, what is it? I think I like, if I'm guessing correctly, then it's one of those moments where like the protagonist has like, you know, all like the tension's like super high, and like the protagonist has a weapon to the antagonist, or like an antagonist, and like just the antagonist like super chill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I really like those. Those are like always like very high intensity. I think like very high stakes, because it's like,
mm-hmm.
You took everything from me. How are you so chill? I like that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about that you can talk about, or do you want to just move on to the next excerpt?
No, unfortunately, I literally can't talk about anything with Ludens.
All right.
Everything about him is just a glaring spoiler.
I bet though, in retrospect, when there are people who are listening to this podcast that are more familiar with Lemon Heart, like if they read the whole book, they're probably like twiddling their fingers, being like, "Oh, I know what happens with Ludens." I know what happens that Gabe isn't talking about right now.
Yeah. I'm figuring that will probably be the case.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to read the rest of Lemon Heart. But like these little like out of context excerpts are great. Speaking of which, let's get to another one.
Okay, so these next two are ones that I have already workshopped with you guys. I don't know if you've read them, but I've workshopped them with the class, and so yeah, they have like sort of been through a process before, but they're from early on. They're both from the third chapter. So I got a little bit into chapter 5 in the last episode, and so this takes place a little bit before that, while they're searching through this old abandoned city looking for an old world war machine.
Mm.
So in the first scene, this is Coma tells Dune about the war. So for context, Coma is there's a bunch of characters with the group that Dune is with called one of those characters is Fever, and she's like I talked about her a little bit in the romance episode. She's like sort of Dune's foil, and Fever's little brother named Coma is like this little he's just this kid who's sort of enamored with Dune as this badass guy. And so he's like always trying to impress Dune, and like he's in large part he's filming the fight that I described in the last episode. So he's a pretty present character with Dune, but he's also just like this little kid who's hanging out with these like crazy violent adults. So the context for the scene is they're exploring the ruins of the city, and Dune is looting the corpse of a old world soldier and taking his knife, and is like sort of looking over his body curiously. Sweet, Dune smiled and wiped the dirty blade on his pants. He looked around for a moment and saw another nearby body with the blade's holster. He lifted the holster off and dusted it down, sliding the blade into the leather and strapping it around his waist. As he secured the holster, he noticed something odd. The fatigues of the soldier with the knife and the soldier he'd stabbed with were identical, as were the symbols on their shoulders. A red star with a yellow emblem of a hammer and sickle in the center. He let out a confused grunt and rejoined the others as they made their way across the city. Hey, you're looking at the soldiers, right? Aren't they cool? Coma shouted as he ran up to Dune. Yeah, kind of, he nodded as the two of them walked towards the rest of the group. You see their flags? Huh? The little patches on their shoulders. Oh, flags, huh? Yeah, Each soldier had a flag to represent their team. Their team? Like a sport? Mm-hmm. Old Worlders loved war. I've read a bunch of Old Worlder books on war, and a lot of it was a little confusing, but they did war a lot. And every time they did a war, they would have different teams competing. If you wanted to join a team for war, you'd have to wear the team's flag, because they didn't have uniforms. Oh, see, look over there, Coma exclaimed, pointing at the withered husk of a soldier's body. See, his flag has red and white stripes, but those guys over there, they have yellow and red stripes, and those guys don't have stripes at all, they just have a red circle. You know a lot about Old Worlders, huh? Yep, my sister thinks it's lame, but I think Old Worlders are badass, Coma grinned. That's it. Like
That's
I said, it's
so
a bit of a
cute.
shorter one.
That's really cute. I like Coma's character. He's got like how old would Coma be?
I haven't like quite pinpointed it, but he's a kid. He's like maybe like 8.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fun.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been working on Coma's design a little bit lately because he's sort of like always wearing this like old world military helmet, but it's like way too big for him, so it's just sort of this big bucket helmet around his head at all times.
That's so cute. I like that. That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
That's a nice touch to his character and what like how he thinks the Old Worlders are so cool. That's really sweet. Like, I was gonna comment, like, you have a really good grasp of nailing down age with your like with through dialogue. Like, if Coma is supposed to be around like what, like 8 years old, like he's got the high energy with the repetitions, like hey, or thing, and like because I have your document up, like a lot of his statements is punctuated with like exclamation marks and stuff, like that's really telling of his age, and I like that.
Yeah, he was a character who I wanted to get right because I don't really write kids into my stories a lot because I'm just like I don't know how to write kids at all. So Coma was a character who I really wanted to get right because he's also like important to the plot. His role with Dune and the whole Lemon Heart thing is like is super relevant, so I wanted to get him right.
Yeah. I've never written in like kids younger than like maybe 15 into my books, because it's definitely a lot harder than I would think. So like, good on you for trying.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really appreciate too how I think like I'd said with Ludens in the last one, Dune really does bounce off Coma really well, I think. Like he's playing along with what's Coma saying, and he's just letting him go on, and I think that's cute. I like that.
Yeah. What I like about Coma and Dune's interactions, this scene is like it's an example of it, but what I like about a lot of their interactions is that Coma has like this super immature view of the world and of the Old Worlders and of like the war. But Dune, who's basically been living in like isolation of the rest of the world in this like frozen like village, he's also pretty ignorant to stuff. So like whenever they converse, it's sort of like this weird subversion on exposition where Coma is like expositing information about the old world, but he's doing it in this super kiddish way. Except this is like the most information you get about the old world a lot of the time, because like this is where Dune learns it from. So like Dune is sort of this witless idiot who's like learning stuff from this kid who has no idea what he's talking about.
Nice. All right. I think that's everything I wanted to point out with this excerpt. So, if you want to move on.
Yeah. All right. So this is a section that I got a lot of like positive comments on when I workshopped it the first time. So this section is called Hebara confronts Dune. So for context, Hebara is another member of the Wastelanders, which is the group Dune's part of. Hebara is like a sort of an older character. He's been around a while. He's not like the leader, but he's like sort of just this old. I guess if I had to like come up with he's just this old grumpy dude who's like kind of badass, but also just kind of just an old man. And during this scene, Dune and Hebara are climbing up a apartment complex to get to a vantage point to sort of get some information on the mech that they're trying to get a hold of. And Dune, who's like super crushing on Fever, figures this is his best opportunity to sort of like ask some questions about her from someone who knows her well, who isn't her little brother. And he it goes how it goes. I'll start. Hey, Mr. Hebara? It's just Hebara, kid. I'm not Mr. anything. Oh, okay. Hebara. Just Hebara. Can I ask you something? Go for it. Hebara sighed. Well, you know Fever? Of course. Right, of course. Well, does she have, like a boyfriend or something?
Aw, that's so cute.
Dune wasn't sure what to expect as he asked this. Maybe he would say yes, or he hoped he would say no. What he certainly didn't expect was Hebara's complete silence as he continued walking toward the rooftop entrance. After waiting for a moment for his answer, Dune grimaced. Hey, tell me, Dune asked. Hebara stopped walking, and Dune stopped walking as well. Dune was baffled by Hebara's response to what he thought was a simple question, and in his confusion, he couldn't stop Hebara from turning around and punching Dune square in the face. He grabbed Dune by the collar and punched him in the jaw, knocking him to the ground. Before Dune can get up, Hebara reeled back and kicked Dune hard in the stomach. As Dune lay writhing on the ground, Hebara took a cigarette out. What the hell, man? Dune yelped. Hebara didn't respond for a moment, taking the time instead to light a cigarette. I had a bet with one of the others you'd bail in the night. You'd pack up, and that would be the last time I saw your rat face. Pissed me off to see I was wrong this morning. I hate being wrong. Worst off, I couldn't figure out why I was wrong. I found it hard to believe you'd had such a quick change of heart. I couldn't figure it out until right just now, Hebara told Dune. Dune looked up at Hebara, his arm tight around his stomach. Let me guess. You don't give a shit about Appalachia, or our people, or anyone in the wastes. You just stuck around because you've got some kind of crush on Fever. Am I wrong? Hebara asked. Dune rolled over onto his back. No, Dune admitted. Hebara nodded and took a long drag from the cigarette. Then I was right to punch you out. Let me make something clear to you, you little goddamn cumbrain. You aren't one of us, and you're never gonna be. You've got no skin in this fight. People in the ways with no good reason to live don't live long. Hebara chastised Dune. Dune glared at him from the ground. Hebara sneered and turned around towards the rooftop. Do yourself a favor and leave tonight. Next time I have to ask, I won't be so nice about it. Hebara told Dune, taking another long drag. He turned around and continued walking to the rooftop entrance when he felt a sudden sharp pain as Dune's foot made contact with his crotch. Hebara yelped and spat the cigarette from his mouth. He turned around, intending to hit Dune again, when Dune ducked and punched Hebara in the balls again. He stepped back and placed one hand on his crotch and used the other hand to support his weight on the hallway wall. Back in the village, in the north, I wasn't anything. I used to think I had friends there, good friends even. But everyone in that village meant one thing to each other. Nothing but meat. Dune grinned devilishly. Even the guy I thought of as my best friend there. The more I think about it, the more obvious it is he didn't care about me as anything more than emergency provisions. My porn was kind of all I had. And for a while I didn't see a problem with living like that. But in the last day, I've eaten food. Actual cooked food. Not just raw birds and acorns. I slept in a bed where I wasn't afraid of freezing to death in the night. The walls made of something other than sheet metal. I had my first beer. I talked to a girl for the first time in my life. I even held hands with her for a second, Dune boasted as he wiped some blood off his lips. So yeah, I might be here for shallow reasons, and maybe I'm a chronic masturbator or a porn addict or whatever, but this is the first time I've been treated like a person. Even you, right now. You're my first normal, real fight. That pissed off look you're shooting at me right now? I'll take that 1,000 times over not being seen at all. Leave? No way. You'd have to kill me to keep me living like this. That's it.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. I really enjoyed that. That's great. I love the fucking back and forth with Dune and Hebara. That was awesome. Like,
they're another character. They're another character dynamic. I love writing.
yeah, it's I love how like there's already so much tension without, or in this excerpt at least, without introducing Fever. Like it starts off with Fever and then it just goes into a whole other thing. That is fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Like there's more to their relationship aside from this one thing. That's good. Other things, I think for me personally, just like I'd said, you do a really good job of like putting so much character through your dialogue. Like again, Dune is initially starting off kind of like curious and kind of awkward, especially when he's asking Hebara for Fever. But like as soon as Dune gets his spine, he's like, "Fuck you! This is actually kind of fun. I'm alive," or whatever the hell. Like I really enjoy that. That's great. Like considering everything that like you had read so far, like that's a nice progress of Dune's character, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Thank you.
with Hebra, like that's a whole other character that I'm interested in exploring, or I'm interested in reading, and I think maybe hearing more about in off conversation, or maybe in future episodes. But this is fascinating.
Yeah.
You've done a really good job.
If we ever do another episode on like our favorite characters, like OC characters, I might talk about him because I like writing him a lot. I'm a big fan of the trope of like a character who is like really old in a line of work where people die young. So like Hank in Breaking Bad, or I'm trying to think of some others, but yeah, Hank in Breaking Bad is a big that's a big inspiration. That's like one of those. If I could like cast this, I would say Jonathan Banks. I would have Jonathan Banks as Hebra.
I could definitely.
That would be like that would be my ideal. But yeah, I really like writing him. So I thought this was these are all dialogue segments of characters who I just really enjoy writing.
Cool. Anything else you want to touch on before we move on to mine?
No, let's do it.
Sweet. All right. Well then, I guess with Gabe's section closing, we'll now touch on mine, which again will be I'll be sharing Xeno. Particularly, I'll be sharing a whole chapter of Xeno. Because when I realize it, I think this whole chapter is primarily dialogue, and I think it's very important dialogue for not just the character of Porter, but for another influential figure in the story, and that is Linnea, the goddess of the soil. Without getting into too much spoilers, Linnea's worship across Illyria, which is where the story is set, is pretty much outlawed. No one speaks about Linnea's worship, and no one no one should be permitted to even knowing about what happened. And as the story progresses, I'll be talking about that more. But I think after being appointed as Linnea's mystic, this is basically the Knights of. So Porter and Magna have basically gone back to the Violet Twilight Inn to get some rest for the night. Porter was in her chair recording the notes, basically describing everything that she had gone through, noting down the black palom like I talked about in previous episodes, but I think most in particular Wednesday's episode on action scenes, because I had mentioned that. And this excerpt, so this chapter is basically, again, still a work in progress, so things might change, but basically it's just Porter talking with the goddess for the first time. And I'll talk more about it after, but let's just get started. So the dialogue excerpt, so this is the goddess's introduction. Porter lifts herself from the chair to grab her batons. Her wrist peaks. Oh, I should probably I didn't mention this before, but basically the previous chapter before this ends with Porter hearing a mysterious voice. But there we go. Now we're better acquainted. Porter lifts herself from the chair to grab her batons. Her wrist pokes out from her jacket, exposing the tattoos. Loose petals from the Lucianthus grow in a dim mauve tint, just like the light from the amulet. What the? Porter hushes. Magna's still asleep, and Porter and Porter could just be hearing things. Who's there? Scanning the room, she catches her reflection in the window. Her eyes, glowing in the same dim mauve. The voice answers. There are two souls within a mystic. The tones deep but sweet, soft-spoken too. Her mom's is the same. Yours and mine, Linnea. Porter lowers herself to her knees. Rise. Porter straightens herself. You should be resting right now, love. Yeah, Porter stammers. I guess so, yeah, Her elated heart thunders in her chest. The goddess is speaking to me. Free to talk then? Well, after you catch your breath, Linnea giggles. We never had a proper introduction. Yeah, sure. Porter takes a second to calm herself. First, raise your arm. Turn your palm to the ceiling. Porter does. The tattoos brighten. Vibrant hues of mauve, black, white, and gold glow from Porter's arms. Her jaw drops and the joyous thumping in her heart shakes her chest as the beautiful colors shape themselves into individual streams. They glide down to her palm, converging at the center to form a hand. With palpable elation, Porter watches the black, white, and mauve streams of light shape the goddess's arm. The gold streams branch off, creating several bracelets, a pair of gold rings, and picture-perfect replicas of Porter's tattoos. As the rest of the body takes shape, a white cape wraps itself around the shoulders, and a white dress accented with mauve details descends to her shins. Linnea stands in front of Porter, fully formed with a smile brighter than the stars. Porter's never seen a more beautiful woman than her. Gods. Porter closes her hand around Linnea's, the skin made of pure light. Soft and smooth, like she's holding a cotton shirt. What the hell? She looks up at the goddess, meeting her bright mauve gaze. I am Linnea, she introduces, lowering her arm to her hips. Goddess of the soil, sister of creation, and daughter of K-Spire, the land you know as Illyria. Porter stammers, still struggling to contain her mania. I am, the goddess snorts. And here I thought the echo would make it easier for you to talk without the nervousness. The echo of the goddess, a physical manifestation of Linnea made of Lennox, steps back to let Porter calm herself, bearing an amused smile. It's a pleasure to meet you, Porter, Xeno. The goddess bows to Porter, resting an arm on her abdomen. Porter reaches for the love seat. Her shaking legs are close to giving in and her eyes twinkle in awe. A goddess of Wuhan just bowed to me. As my mystic, I now know and share your memories, your hopes, Porter's not paying attention. Linnea scoffs. She approaches the table where Porter's journal is. She picks it up, flipping through the pages. Yeah, that. Porter blurts. I'm just working on recording your encounter with the Elemis. She turns a page, showing the drawing of Marnawe. The goddess smiles, placing a hand on the sketch. Sister, she murmurs to the drawing, just loud enough for Porter to hear. The what? Porter asks. Your mother's abductors. Oh. The deep, crackling storm in Porter rumbles, humbling her elation. The name is an ancient term for mystery, Porter hears Linnea say, back when this land was under a single king and queen. Her journal is handed back. Porter records the name on a blank page, underlining it twice. Elemis. Finally, a real lead. Linnea takes a seat on the edge of the bed, her graceful movements barely making a sound. Any idea when they appeared? Porter murmurs, recording the notes. Argura of last year, the goddess answers. Porter's mind races back to a few months ago, to election month, when every royal family were at risk of changing. Do you remember? Yes, to spare herself the extra words. And it was a shit show. Crazier than the usual garbage fire that is election month. On top of potentially losing their respective seats in power, attack ads against the Valeras were rampant across Orsino following a soap opera-esque scandal with the twins. Losing her husband meant Erica Keynes barely survived containing the sectarian riots between East and West Bastion on their own. Viola's thriving economy under the Yobas happened almost overnight. The death of Prince Onik Garland is still under investigation in Belgium as a possible assassination, and a series of targeted terror attacks across Amari nearly tore the Barquois family apart. Despite all of these things, each family still rules. The Elemis were born in those weeks, but why? What else? Porter asks, her pen dashing across the lines. I'm sorry. Linnea faces Porter, sympathy gleaming in her eyes. I know nothing more than that. Porter stops. What? No, please. Aren't you omniscient or something? There must be more. Of the soil, yes. Their strange magic has been infecting the land since that Aryura, but I don't know who or where they are. No. I wish you did. Porter glares towards the floor, her teeth digging into her lip in immediate shame. Wait, I didn't mean... Linnea faces Porter's head from the ground, or lifts Porter's head from the ground. How heavy your heart must be, love, she says, showing a forgiving grin for her mystic. Barely giving yourself a moment of respite. It's okay. No, Porter murmurs. Gods, it's not okay. If it was, she stops herself. Your mother wouldn't be in danger, the goddess finishes. Forgive me. Porter stands near the windows, her fists clenched close to her lips. For weeks she's kept herself under control, trying desperately to repress it, but now she's finally lost, as a single tear wells in each eye. I miss her. A tear from Porter's right eye drips, splashing against her journal. I'd give anything to go back in time and keep them from taking her. Linnea doesn't respond. Not initially. I know. I know you would. Porter's tone sours again. Is there anything you do know then? She swivels on her heels. I know that it's late. Porter can't roll her eyes back enough. You should have gone to bed a while ago. And if you think I may be dodging any attempt to say anything more, let this be clear. I know just as much about them as you do, so then why are you here? Porter takes a step forward, the last tear resting on the edge and ready to drop at any moment. She takes a defiant step towards the echo of Linnea. Just to tell me I need sleep? Yes. Has that not been evident enough? Linnea stands her ground. It comes with being part of you now that I know who you are, what you've done, how you think. The goddess lifts her hand to Porter's face. She wipes the single tear away. How many times you've tried to stop yourself from thinking too much... How many times you've tried to stop yourself from thinking too much so far? Because you know just how destructive, how devastating that is. Linnea's hand slides to Porter's cheek. Unsheathed, you'll be dangerous, love. You're a sword unlike any I've ever seen at your best, but the elements aren't here. And if you fully lose your control right now, the only one you would end up hurting right now is yourself. Porter turns away to the bed where Magna sleeps, fighting to control herself again. Rest now, Linnea continues, not forcing Porter to look back. Give yourself that as a necessity before we both see you at your worst. Porter takes in a breath. Okay. Good. With a final smile, the echo of the goddess dissipates. Tucking her journal away, she crawls into the bed beside Magna. Porter lies on her back, taking a finger and wiping off the remnants of the tears that escaped from her control. Porter doesn't close her eyes. She can't yet. I miss you, Porter mouths into the silent air, begging that her mom's listening somehow. I miss you so goddamned much. An arm draped itself on Porter's waist. Wait, Porter, are you just now going to bed? Magna. Fighting her control, Porter turns around and wraps her own arms around Magna, taking her best friend in as she shuts her eyes for the night. Porter? Magna asks again, her voice muffled in Porter's clothes. Were you talking... Porter hugs her tighter. I'm sorry. Go back to bed. Are you... I'm okay. And that's it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, the reason why I chose this chapter to share is because I think it's probably the big pivotal turning points for many of the character dynamics in this story. So, it's, I think, obviously shows Porter, who has been a very cool and very collected, but still a very emotionally vulnerable character, very emotionally vulnerable, because now she has someone quite literally in her head, as mystics share their conscience with their respective god. it introduces Linnea as I don't want to say as a substitute mother figure, because that she's more than that, but basically just as a very caring, a very empathetic character, which is something I'm going to love to play with eventually, because I have big plans for that empathy. And it also shows just, I think at the end, why I wanted to end the chapter that way is because it's just more, I think, depth than I would, or that I purposefully am hoping it is for Porter and Magna's relationship, because Porter lied to her best friend saying that she is okay when she's not. And it's not even that. It's Porter lied about talking to a goddess of Linnea, who Magna does acknowledge was their goals. She knows that Porter is now the mystic to Linnea, but she doesn't know that they just talked. And I guess without getting too much into it, because spoilers, I do go into that later in the book, and I'm hoping it's emotional, or I'm hoping it's as emotional as I want it to be, because I'm exploring 3 different relationships with this excerpt. So I'm exploring the introduction between Porter and Linnea, as well as touching a little bit more on Porter and Magna. But I think I can talk more about it, but I think I've been talking for a little bit too long. So, Gabe, what did you think?
I thought that was really good. I love the interactions with Linnea. Like she's very sort of like it's sort of she's like a mother figure, but she's also like sort of stoic and like mentorly, but not really like mentorly. Like just she's like a wine aunt. She's motherly, but she's stern, and like I can tell, like she's caring, and she's like she'll help you, and she'll care for you, but she'll also like give you PCP for your birthday.
Oh my God, Linnea would not give Porter PCP for her birthday. But I understand. Anything else you wanted to point out? Because I can expand on the things that you say after.
No, I do like the development with Porter here, and I like how like just awestruck Porter is. Like she's just at this whole situation happening.
Yeah,
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, if you think, like, as a person who, or I guess to touch on this, Porter was someone who grew up reading the Mist comics, which in my world is basically, it's basically just comic books about, like, the mystics of previous generations, right? So, hearing of their exploits and, like, having their story, or, like, having the story of the mystics be so accessible for Porter at the time, it's fascinating. It's like quite literally living out your dream as a superhero, and I wanted to get that evident, but also as I'm pretty like hopefully I had got it like nailed down. But when Porter means business, especially when it comes to people that she cares about, it suddenly switches. So like the elation goes away as soon as there's a name to the people that she is going up against, right? And the Elemis, I guess, are the people that were or I guess like they had met Porter and Magna at the Temple of Linnea, Gabe, if you remember from last episode, where there was that hulking fiend of a man with the mask and shit. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's part of it. And with now that there is people, Porter's still somewhat focused, but even as soon as there is an inkling of a chance, suddenly what was supposed to be an omniscient god is not actually so omniscient because they don't know. And I purposefully decided to write it that way because having omniscient gods would just make the story end in like 2-3 chapters. And that's not fun. But more than that, like I had talked about how the gods in this world were once mortal. So they don't always know everything, even if they are commanding parts of the planet, basically. So I think that I'm hoping that that is interesting conflict. Because, you know, it could probably just be me touting myself a little bit, but like, yeah. What else to talk about in this? I think I'd previously wanted to, or I think I've previously said in like creative writing workshops and like in maybe off conversations just about creative writing that like I love 2-person dynamics, especially when it comes to dialogue, because there is so much emotion you can get out of those scenes. And that's what I was hoping to accomplish here. So like we don't just get a look into how, I guess, stern and wine auntie Linnea is, but like it also explores Porter's vulnerability. And I'm hoping that it's done well here, because Porter's vulnerability and anxiety and I guess over worrying when it comes to people that she cares about, I think that is the most fatal flaw that she has, or that'll be like keeping her from being a very one-dimensional character. Because like I think this scene in particular is like I'm really hoping that this translates well, because in previous drafts it didn't. Yeah. But I mean, where else to open up conversation about this? It's more like this chapter really, I think if I haven't already said it, this chapter really is a big turning point for the story, because in a way, because this is, I think, around chapter 12, I think this is the whole of chapter 12 actually, I think this would probably be the end of act 1. So how I've structured the story, it goes in a different act. So like as soon as readers will get to this chapter, everyone knows that the next chapter after this will be the rest of the adventure, and everything that you had read beforehand leading up to this is a nice little wrap up. So like when they start in the morning, it'll be like, oh shit, new adventure. Yeah. But there were a couple other really interesting sections that I wanted to touch on. Like, I don't want to read it because that is also very spoiler heavy. But like, touching quickly on Linnea and Porter's relationship, because this one excerpt, or because this one chapter is like the beginning of it, like for me, I'm hoping that it lays enough groundwork to keep myself knowing, because like, yeah, I was kind of going for a very stoic but caring I guess authority figure, but also keeping Porter's vulnerability in mind. And I guess I'm probably just repeating myself, but yeah, any final thoughts on that?
No, I really like that. Yeah. I definitely like the interactions between Lena, and I like Porter's like having her little moment of weakness.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of many moments of weakness, because again, if I had my way, then oh god, excuse me, or if I can write it in correctly in future chapters, oh, she's gonna have a very bad moment of weakness later. But that's spoilers. That was really, I think, all I wanted to share, really. Like,
okay,
yeah, this is checking the timestamps. This would probably be the first episode that goes under an hour, which is amazing, considering that's never happened before on this podcast. We like to share our ideas, so I think that's fine. I think that's fine with me. We kind of just wrap it up there. Gabe, is there anything else you want to share? Or
No, I think I got it all. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully this episode does end up being just at least under an hour and 5 minutes. But I mean, if it's at an exact hour, sweet. But yeah, let's close it off for there. Or let's close it off for. Oh my God. Let's close it off for tonight. So thanks everybody for listening in. Thank you for joining us for season 3. You can find all of our social media down in the description below, both individually and as the Ink Guild. We're on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. As well as all of us. We're all, mostly on Instagram, but we have some social media kind of everywhere. I guess as a final send-off for not just this episode, but for the season, what are some topics that you're looking forward to talking about in season 4?
Well, I mean, like I said, I would love to do another episode on video games with the Soy Boys. I don't really have any specific topics in mind. Maybe just like another best video game stories that we can just throw that one out there, or like other things. I don't know. I think I can't really think of any topics. I was sort of riding the least favorite characters horse for so long. I couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, you wanted a night to think. You wanted a night to get your feelings out there about fucking Makima, and I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for me, I'm looking forward to potentially doing a poetry episode because we have a couple poets in our Discord now. That'll be a good thing to talk about with them if they're willing. I like doing character breakdown, or I loved doing the Sarah J. Maas episode, so I'm definitely want to do that with Alex on Cassandra Clare, because she has a lot more feelings about Cassandra Clare than she does Sarah J. Maas. Maybe doing a character dissection of Tahara Mafi, because Brooke and I share a similarity or a similar series in Shatter Me, but I'll have to talk it over with her. As always, we're gonna do more sharing episodes of our stories. So like maybe, if Gabe is willing to share more of Lemon Heart, we can talk more action scenes. We can talk more dialogue. We can even I think we can even just like talk themes. I guess that'll be an interesting thing to talk about. But cinematic franchises, we can always do a follow-up on that, even though our episode on that was a couple hours. But there's so many cinematic franchises out there that we can go on about. I would love to do another episode with Mark whenever he has time, because he's been super busy lately. But when I did, or Gabe, when we did when we did his introductory episode and when we did historical fiction, I really enjoyed talking with Mark. He has a lot of insight, and maybe another music episode with Marie-Soleil and Tyler. That was a good discussion. But I doubt like we'll be thinking about, or I think like we'll be thinking about that for a while, because right now we'll be going on a bit of a break, because with the season ending, we'd like to take some time. And I think because we're ending this around, so this episode was recorded around March 4th, so that means everyone now has the rest of the month to deal with university and hopefully whatever else is happening in their lives. But yeah, we're gonna be taking a bit of a break, but I'm hoping that by the end of April, and this is just wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that by the end of April we can start up again, because May 1st was when the first episode of the InkGuild podcast was completely uploaded, and then that was back when it was just Gabe, Jessica, and I talking about our writing origins. I'd love to revisit not just that episode with Jessica if she's available, but just look back on everything, like talk about the podcast in general. Because like I always check in with everybody. I'm like, how was the episode and shit? But like, really, we've been doing this for a year. And by the time we get there, I'll be more sentimental and shit. But like, thanks guys. Thanks Gabe for being, I guess, in a way, a co-host, even though you haven't always been available for every episode. So thank you. And also thank you again for the thumbnails. As always, they're fantastic.
No problem.
I guess for season 3, thanks to Brooke for joining us. If she's listening, thank you, Brooke, for providing your chaotic machine energy, as I've kind of been calling it exclusively just now. What is it? Also, thank you to Alex if she's listening. Like, your rants on Sarah J. Maas and queer baiting and all that is always great to listen to. Maddie, if you're listening to this, thank you for finding some time to speak with us again. As well, Marie-Soleil, thank you for appearing in a couple more episodes, even though, because I know you weren't part of it last season. And Tyler, if you're also listening to this, thanks for joining. Good on you for, I guess, being comfortable speaking with us. Your insight was great. Georgia, Mark, I know you guys weren't part of the season, I know you guys weren't part of the season, but I hope next season, when school is over, we can hopefully have you guys back. I love talking with you guys about creative writing. And I want to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back, because this had been, I think, the most consistent I've been with this project since we started, and it's been great. I don't want to suddenly start gloating, but like, it's been good sticking to a consistent schedule with however many people can appear on these. So yeah, that was season 3 of the InkGuild podcast. Gabe, do you have any other final things to say?
Yeah. Look forward to season 4. And yeah, thanks for watching season 3, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for watching season 3, everybody. And as for this episode, thank you for listening, and have a good night.